Joining me now is Sarah Gudenau. She is a Oakland University journalism student and the features editor at the independent student newspaper, the Oakland Post, as well. Sarah, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So first off, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a journalism major. Or a journalism student. What had drawn you to that path for your career and for your studies?
Sure. Well, my decision for journalism as my path wasn't really that straightforward. I actually entered university as an undecided student. It's hard to know what you want to do when you're 17, but I did know that I wanted a field that I could put my creativity to use. So what I actually ended up doing, I had a printed list of all the majors that Oakland University had to offer, and I went through one by one, X'd out the hard passes, circled the maybes, and one of those maybes was journalism. So I took the introductory course, and it turns out that I really enjoyed it. I've always loved reading and writing, and I really appreciate storytelling. And I've kind of discovered that feature writing is an area of journalism that I especially like, and one that, you know, as a journalist, you get to interview a bunch of different people and hear different perspectives, and it's your job to kind of piece it together and make a coherent narrative or story out of it. So that's what really draws me to it.
And so you're the features editor currently at the Oakland Post, which is an independent student-ran newspaper at Oakland University. And it's interesting because in journalism, there's so many different paths, especially with the internet today, that you can go as a journalist, as a reporter, or a producer, or any form of a storyteller in that industry today. And so for you, going and working on the team at the Oakland Post and being a features editor and a writer as well, what really drew you to that focus in journalism and specifically to the features? You touched on it a little bit as you told us why you chose journalism as a major, but what really drew you to that among all the other options that are there in journalism?
Sure. Well, I actually started out as a graphic designer at the Oakland Post. Funnily enough, I had a media design class. And the features editor position was one that was open. And while I did enjoy doing graphic design, writing and editing is more my strong suit. And really, I did have a features writing class that kind of opened my eyes to feature writing. But once I kind of started that position is where I found my appreciation and passion for editing itself.
And so journalism doesn't come to a stop with the pandemic like many other industries that can take a pause, or that can take and stop altogether. Journalism, reporting, even at the level of a student newspaper, that can't stop with the pandemic. Stories continue to need to be told, and information continues to need to go out to the public. But it can be really challenging, I would imagine, for any journalism major, for any journalist to continue to tell these stories and collect the information that they need, especially for features where you're talking to so many people about so many different topics. Touch a little bit on the challenges that you experienced and how you overcame them to continue to do what you do for the Oakland Post, and that your entire team over there has continued to do to write these features during the pandemic.
It's certainly been challenging. At the Oakland Post, we are working remotely right now, and we have been remote on and off throughout the pandemic. And what we've learned is that it takes a lot more communication than normal. We're not able to all be in the newsroom together, coming up with ideas or just editing, writing, putting together the publication. And so it takes a lot more communication. And we do have a really strong team. Everyone's really supportive and pushes each other to do the best work that they can. So to overcome that, we've just been over-communicating.
We're joined by Sarah Gudenau. She is an Oakland University journalism student, as well as the features editor for the Oakland Post, which is their independent student newspaper there at Oakland University. And so you've written a couple of interesting features fairly recently. Just a few days ago, you released an article with some tips for students that are continuing in now this fifth semester of learning under the pandemic, whether it's been in person or it's been virtual or been some sort of hybrid or a little bit of all of the above, to provide them some insight into steps that they can take to navigate the COVID-19 fatigue, the Zoom fatigue, and just a general fatigue of dealing with a crisis like this that's so complicated while also being a student in a number of different areas. So to write this article, to provide these tips, I would imagine part of it was from personal experience and your own perseverance, but also from the experience of other students. What went into crafting these tips, these 10 tips that you provided for students to overcome some of the fatigues that continue to be there during being educated during this COVID-19 pandemic?
You're exactly right. There was some personal tips in there, but I also talked to numerous students that I know of, and I also interviewed a couple of professors for that story to get their takes. Everyone had kind of similar information, so I kind of combined it as well as put my personal input as well.
We're joined by Sarah Gudenau. She is an Oakland University journalism student and the features editor at the Oakland Post, which is their student newspaper over there at Oakland University. And another article you wrote was about the impact of some social media on the attention span of young people, including students both at the university level, but also younger students as well. And of course, in the last few years, TikTok has become a lot more popular among younger people that are consuming social media. And you had a really interesting feature on that as well, talking about the shrink in their attention span. Tell us a little bit about the focus of that story, some of the interesting things that you learned along the way, and from your conversations with students and with experts in media studies, what you learned about just how the use of social media, and in particular TikTok, is impacting younger people today.
While researching that, I learned that, well, there's not that much research on that specific topic. TikTok is a fairly new app, and so obviously there aren't many long-term or even short-term studies about how it specifically impacts students' attention spans. So it was difficult to find sources and to really make that my focus. But something that I learned in the process that I thought was really interesting, one of my sources, Kimberly Burnock, she's a psychotherapist. She made the point that just because there is a correlation potentially between higher social media use and shorter attention spans doesn't necessarily mean it's as simple as a cause and effect relationship. It's not very black and white. There's other factors to take into consideration that may be causing both of those things, such as mental illness. And she articulates it really well in the article.
And so did you also converse with students in building this feature and writing this feature to get a perspective from younger people, and not all students, of course, at any university are necessarily younger people, but particularly for this article, speaking to younger people that are the focus of this topic of conversation, and in those conversations that you may have had with them, what sort of factors did you piece together that came into their use of TikTok and their attention span as it relates to consuming that media, but consuming it on such a massive scale where people are often, they can go on there to watch these 15-second to 3-minute videos and be scrolling through TikTok for several hours?
Sure. Well, I started off with the idea kind of based on my personal experience. I felt that especially during the course of the pandemic, I've been on TikTok more and more, and my attention span seems to be smaller and smaller. And just talking amongst my friends or other students, I've heard similar experiences. And so when it came to the article itself, I did interview one student and got her take. And she told me about how she used TikTok for over an hour a day on average. We looked at the statistics collected by her phone and settings. And I also checked out what the national average is, which also is, I believe, over an hour a day. So that's where that perspective came in.
We're joined by Sarah Gudenau. She is an Oakland University journalism student as well as the features editor at their student newspaper, the Oakland Post. You can learn more information by just searching the Oakland Post on Oakland University's website at oakland.edu to learn more information and read some of these articles from Sarah and from others on the team as well. And so in the journalism curriculum, and particularly for you as someone that enjoys the writing side of journalism and more of the print or online written journalism side, Obviously, you've had to have taken a lot of writing classes, or you will be taking more writing classes to improve in those skills. But what are some of the other focuses in your education to get that broad scope of what it takes to be a quality journalism, and how does that apply to the work that you do both in your own features with the Oakland Post, but also in the guidance that you provide the other features writers at the Post?
Sure. Well, I've had some pretty impactful courses. My advanced writing and editing class really is where I first experienced editing other my peers' work. We got good practice with AP style, and taught by that same professor. I had a class that was ethical issues in the media, where we explored things such as journalistic objectivity, how to be an ethical writer, like how does social media impact journalism? And so those are things I can keep in mind and pass down to the reporters whose work I'm editing. Kind of apart from a journalistic focus, my favorite class by far that I've taken at university so far was actually a gender communications class, which was really interesting. And I find that to be helpful, not only in my writing, but when I'm communicating with different reporters.
We're joined by Sarah Gudenau. She is the features editor at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's independent student newspaper. You can learn more information at oaklandpostonline.com. Again, that is oaklandpostonline.com. And so, Sarah, of course, we talked about a couple of your more recent features. What are other stories that you're currently working on, or that your team's currently working on over there at the Oakland Post that people can expect to enjoy here in the near future?
I'm currently working on a story analyzing where Oakland University stands as an LGBTQ plus friendly campus. That's in the works. I hope to talk to our Gender and Sexuality Center at the university, as well as students, to get their perspectives. And our team, we're always working on different university campus related stories. A big series that's been this whole semester and last semester was contract negotiations between administration and faculty, and that is still an ongoing series that people can check out.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much for joining us, telling us more about, of course, your interest in journalism, some of your recent articles with the Oakland Post, and, of course, about all the work that's being done over there at Oakland University's independent student-run newspaper.
Thank you.